The massive steel doors of Laboratory Complex 7 hissed open with a sound like escaping steam. Chief Engineer Vexstar stepped into the sterile white chamber, his forearms moving with practiced efficiency as he activated the monitoring systems. The air hummed with electricity, and the faint scent of ozone filled his nostrils. Before him stood the culmination of 3 years of relentless experimentation. Apex 7 towered 30 feet above the laboratory floor, its enormous frame casting shadows across the pristine walls. The creature's skin rippled with a dark metallic sheen, muscles bulging beneath biomechanical plating that pulsed with veins of blue energy. Along its spine, neural implants flickered like tiny stars, each one a link in the chain that bound the beast's will to its masters. "Magnificent," whispered Dr. Keelathon, the lead geneticist. Her silver eyes gleamed with pride as she studied the readouts streaming across dozens of holographic displays. "The fusion of organic tissue with our cybernetic enhancements has exceeded all projections." Vexstar nodded, his scaled face impassive. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 17 star systems, but humanity continued to resist. Their homeworld Earth remained defiant, protected by increasingly desperate defensive measures. Traditional weapons had failed. Conventional armies had been repelled. But this creature would be different. "Show me the combat protocols," Vexstar commanded. The laboratory's central platform began to rotate, revealing a series of targets made from the same materials used in human military armor. At a single mental command from the control interface, Apex 7 moved with terrifying grace. Its massive claws, each one longer than a Zephyrian warrior, sliced through the reinforced steel like it was paper. The creature's roar shook the entire facility, a sound that spoke of primal fury, barely contained by artificial restraints. "Impressive," Vexstar murmured, watching as the beast demolished target after target. "But what of its obedience levels?" Dr. Keelathon's fingers danced across the control panel. "Neural suppression is operating at maximum efficiency. The creature's original instincts have been completely overwritten. It cannot disobey a direct command, cannot even conceive of rebellion." The Warbeast had been created from the genetic material of the Void Stalkers, apex predators from the dark space between stars. These creatures had once been the most feared hunters in the galaxy, capable of surviving in the vacuum of space and tracking prey across light years. The Empire had hunted them to near extinction, harvesting their DNA for this very purpose. "The humans believe they understand warfare," Vexstar said, his voice carrying the weight of countless victories. "They think their courage and determination make them special. They will learn otherwise." As he spoke, holographic displays around the chamber showed the latest intelligence reports from Earth. Human resistance fighters continued to strike at Zephyrian supply lines. Their technology was primitive compared to the Empire's, but their refusal to surrender had cost valuable resources and time. "How many more of these creatures can we produce?" Vexstar asked. "Apex 7 is the prototype," Dr. Keelathon replied. "If the Earth campaign succeeds, we can begin mass production. The genetic templates are stable, and the cybernetic integration process has been perfected." The creature stood motionless now, awaiting further commands. Its eyes glowed with an eerie blue light, the same color as the neural implants that controlled its every thought. Those eyes had once belonged to a free creature, a being that had roamed the cosmos following its own desires. Now they saw only what the Empire wanted them to see. "Begin final preparations for transport," Vexstar ordered. "I want Apex 7 ready for deployment within the cycle." As the engineering team swarmed around the creature, attaching transport restraints and conducting final system checks, something flickered deep within Apex 7's consciousness. It was barely a whisper, a fragment of memory from its original nature. The sensation of moving through space unbound, of choosing its own path, of being free. But the neural implants detected the anomaly instantly. Electrical impulses flooded the creature's brain, suppressing the rebellious thought before it could fully form. The moment passed, leaving only the empty obedience that the Empire demanded. "Combat effectiveness stands at 97.3%, reported a technician. "All systems nominal." Vexstar smiled, an expression that would have terrified most beings in the galaxy. "Excellent. The humans have fought bravely, but bravery alone cannot stand against perfection." When Apex 7 reaches Earth, their resistance will be crushed once and for all. The creature's massive chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. Its breathing regulated by the same systems that controlled its thoughts. In the depths of its engineered mind, the last traces of its original self lay buried beneath layers of programming and control. The Empire had taken a creature of the wild cosmos and transformed it into the ultimate weapon, yet somewhere in the darkness of its suppressed consciousness, a single spark of its true nature remained, waiting for the right moment to ignite. The massive Zephyrian transport ship Dominator cut through the darkness of space like a silver blade. Its hull stretched over 2 miles long, bristling with weapons and sensor arrays that could detect a mouse from 3 star systems away. In the ship's reinforced cargo bay, Apex 7 stood motionless in its containment field, blue energy crackling around its massive frame. Captain Zorkith stood on the bridge, his 6 eyes focused on the swirling blue and green planet growing larger on the viewscreen. Earth, the final prize. After 3 years of bitter fighting, the human homeworld would finally fall. "We're detecting unusual solar activity," reported Navigation Officer Veltar, his claws clicking nervously across the control interface. "The star's magnetic field is fluctuating beyond normal parameters." Zorkith barely glanced at the readings. "Insignificant. Human resistance has made us overcautious. Continue on course." But the sun had other plans. Deep within its burning core, magnetic field lines twisted and snapped like rubber bands. The solar flare that erupted was unlike anything seen in centuries. A massive wave of charged particles and electromagnetic radiation that raced outward at the speed of light. The Dominator's shields flickered to life as the wave hit. Energy barriers, designed to deflect asteroid impacts and enemy weapons, but this was different. The electromagnetic pulse penetrated the shields like they were tissue paper, cascading through every system on the ship. In the cargo bay, Apex 7's neural implants began to spark. The creature's eyes, which had glowed with steady blue light for 3 years, suddenly flickered. Emergency power systems kicked in, but the damage was already spreading. One by one, the implants that controlled the beast's mind began to fail. "Warning, containment field compromised," announced the ship's computer in its emotionless voice. "Cargo bay security breach imminent." The first sensation Apex 7 felt was pain, not the dull, controlled discomfort it had known under the Empire's control, but raw, screaming agony as the neural suppressors overloaded. The creature's massive frame convulsed, muscles spasming as foreign electricity coursed through its system. Then came the memories. Like a dam bursting, everything the Empire had stolen flooded back. Apex 7 remembered soaring through the void between stars, its powerful wings catching solar winds as it hunted across the galaxy. It remembered the pack, dozens of its kind moving in perfect harmony through the cosmos. It remembered the taste of freedom, the joy of the hunt, the simple pleasure of existing without chains. The creature's roar started deep in its chest, a sound that had once struck terror into the hearts of pirates and explorers across 17 star systems. But now it carried something new: rage, pure, undiluted fury at what had been done to it. Containment. "Field failing," shouted the cargo bay supervisor, a nervous Zephyrian named Tekellen. "All personnel evacuate immediately." But there was nowhere to run. The energy field collapsed with a sound like breaking glass, and Apex 7 was free for the first time in 3 years. The creature's massive claws, each one capable of tearing through starship armor, found the nearest bulkhead. "Ah!" Metal screamed as it gave way like cardboard. "Bridge, this is Cargo Bay 7. Teklen's voice was barely a whisper. "The weapon is loose." "Repeat. The weapon is loose." Captain Zorkith felt his blood turn to ice. "Impossible. The neural controls are failsafe." "Sir, the solar flare must have disrupted the implants. The creature is destroying everything." Ship shuddered as Apex 7 tore through another section of hull. The beast moved with terrible purpose, its recovered memories guiding it toward the ship's critical systems. It remembered the layout of Zephorian vessels, remembered the weak points where maximum damage could be inflicted. Emergency klaxons, wailed throughout the ship as atmosphere began venting into space. The creature's rampage had punctured the main fuel lines, and now highly explosive plasma was spreading through the ship's corridors. Crew members scrambled for escape pods, but many sections were already cut off by the beast's path of destruction. "Abandon ship," Zorketh commanded, his voice breaking with panic. "All hands to escape pods." But Apex 7 wasn't interested in escape. It was interested in revenge. Creature's enhanced strength, originally designed to crush human resistance, now turned against its creators. Support beams buckled under massive claws. Power conduits exploded in showers of sparks. The ship's artificial gravity failed, sending debris floating through the corridors like deadly projectiles. The Dominator began to break apart, its massive hull splitting down the middle as internal explosions tore it apart from within. Apex 7 stood at the center of the chaos, its eyes now blazing with their original golden light instead of the artificial blue of the implants. Earth's gravity caught the falling wreckage, pulling it down through the atmosphere in a spectacular display of fire and destruction. The creature rode the largest section of the ship down, its enhanced physiology protecting it from the crushing forces that would have killed any normal being. The impact site in the ruins of New York created a crater half a mile wide. Twisted metal and burning debris scattered across the landscape, sending up a pillar of smoke that could be seen from orbit. From the center of the devastation, Apex 7 emerged, its massive form silhouetted against the flames. For the first time in its existence, the creature was truly free, and it was very, very angry. Commander Park Hyun-woo pressed his back against the crumbling concrete wall, feeling the vibrations through his spine as another building came crashing down 6 blocks away. The sound echoed through the ruins of Manhattan like thunder, followed by that bone-chilling roar that had haunted his nightmares for 3 straight days. "Status report," he whispered into his comm unit, trying to keep his voice steady. "Building 7 is gone," came the shaky voice of Lieutenant Kim Da-yoon from her position on the next street over. "The thing just walked through it, like it wasn't even there. Concrete, steel beams, everything. Just ... gone." No. Raised his scope and peered through the shattered window of what used to be a coffee shop. 3 blocks away, Apex 7 stood, among the rubble of a former apartment complex, its massive frame silhouetted against the smoke-filled sky. The creature's golden eyes swept back and forth, searching for its next target. "It's not hunting," Da-yoon continued, her voice tight with fear. "It's just destroying everything it sees." Yesterday, it attacked that pack of stray dogs in Times Square. Before that, it tore apart a Zephyrian patrol drone that was just sitting there, powered down. The creature moved with terrifying grace for something so large. Its muscles rippled beneath scarred skin as it picked up a city bus with one massive claw and hurled it through the air like a toy. The vehicle crashed into a nearby building, sending glass and debris raining down onto the empty street. "Movement on the eastern flank," reported Sergeant Lee Minho from his sniper position. "Zephyrian hunting squad, 12 strong. They're carrying those new plasma nets?" Hyun-woo cursed under his breath. The aliens had been scouring the city for days, desperate to recapture their escaped weapon. Their patrols had grown more aggressive, more reckless. The Empire's most expensive military project was running wild, and they were willing to level what was left of New York to get it back. "They're setting up some kind of trap," Minho continued. "Energy barriers, containment fields. Looks like they're trying to corner it near the old subway entrance." The Zephyrian hunting party moved with military precision, their blue-skinned forms darting between the ruins. Their leader, a tall alien with 4 arms and glowing red eyes, barked orders. In their harsh language, energy weapons charged with an electric whine that cut through the air. Apex 7 noticed them too. The creature's massive head turned toward the alien squad, and for a moment its rampage paused. Then the beast let out a roar that shattered every remaining window within a 3-block radius. This wasn't just anger anymore. This was hatred. "Here it comes," Da-yoon whispered. The creature launched itself forward with impossible speed, covering the distance to the Zephyrian squad in 3 massive bounds. The aliens opened fire, plasma bolts lighting up the afternoon sky like deadly fireworks. Most of the shots missed, but those that connected barely slowed the beast down. Hugh watched in horrified fascination as HFY 7 crashed into the alien formation. The creature's claws swept through their ranks like a scythe through wheat. Alien bodies flew through the air, their weapons scattered and broken. The hunt had become a slaughter. "Sir," came a new voice over the comm. "This is Corporal Choi Seung-min. We've got civilians trapped in the subway tunnels beneath the creature. Should we attempt extraction?" "Negative," Hyenwoo replied immediately. "Too dangerous. The thing will sense movement." But even as he spoke, he knew the situation was getting worse. The creature's rampage was driving it closer to the hidden settlements, where hundreds of families had taken shelter. These people had survived 3 years of alien occupation by staying invisible, living in the forgotten spaces beneath the city. Now their sanctuary was about to become a death trap. A Zephyrian plasma cannon mounted on a floating platform rose. From behind a pile of rubble, the weapon charged with a deep humming sound, energy crackling along its barrel. The shot was perfect. Direct hit to HFY 7's left shoulder that sent the creature stumbling backward. Dark blood, almost black in the afternoon light, streamed from the wound. The creature's roar changed pitch, becoming something closer to a scream of pain and rage. For the first time since the rampage began, HFY 7 looked vulnerable. "It's hurt," Dayun said, her voice filled with hope. "Maybe we can." The creature's head snapped toward her position, its golden eyes burning with fury. Hyenwoo felt his blood turn to ice as he realized the beast had heard her transmission. HFY 7 began moving in their direction, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. "Fall back," he shouted. "Everyone fall back now." But the creature was already retreating, its massive frame disappearing into the darkness of the subway entrance. The wound was bleeding heavily, and even something as powerful as HFY 7 had limits. The beast had found a place to hide, to heal, to plan its next move. In the tunnels below, families huddled in their makeshift homes, unaware that death was descending toward them. Among them was 70-year-old Lee Jin-ho, a boy who had never seen sunlight or known a world without the sound of distant explosions. He was drawing pictures with a piece of charcoal, creating imaginary worlds where monsters and heroes existed in the same story. He had no idea that both were about to become very real. The old subway tunnel shook as something massive crashed through the concrete barrier that had protected the hidden settlement for 3 years. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling. As emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the underground community, Linari clutched her 7-year-old son Jin-ho against her chest, her heart pounding as she heard the heavy footsteps echoing through the tunnel. Around them, 20 other families pressed against the tunnel walls, their faces pale with terror. This was their sanctuary, their secret home beneath the ruins of New York, and now something had found them. "Everyone stay quiet," whispered Elder Park, the oldest survivor in their group. His weathered hands shook as he reached for the rusted pipe he kept as a weapon. Maybe it will pass by. But the footsteps stopped just outside their hidden chamber. Through the cracks in their makeshift wall, they could see a massive shadow moving in the darkness. Then came the sound of claws scraping against concrete, and the barrier that had protected them for so long began to crumble. HFY 7 burst through the wall like it was made of paper. The creature's massive frame filled the tunnel entrance, its golden eyes blazing in the dim light. Dark blood dripped from the plasma wound on its shoulder, forming a growing pool on the tunnel floor. The families scrambled backward, mothers pulling children behind them, fathers grabbing anything that could serve as a weapon. Her son slipped from her grasp as Jin-ho stepped forward, his small figure dwarfed by the towering beast. She whispered, reaching for him. But the boy was already moving toward the creature. HFY 7 expected the usual response: screaming, running, maybe a futile attack with primitive weapons. It had seen the same pattern dozens of times over the past 3 days. Fear followed by violence, violence followed by death. The creature's massive chest heaved with each labored breath, strength fading from the plasma wound. But this small human was different. The boy walked slowly, his dark eyes fixed on the creature's face. There was no fear in his expression, No hatred, just curiosity, and something else that Apex 7 couldn't identify. It's hurt, Jinho said quietly, his voice cutting through the tense silence. Look, it's bleeding. The other adults stared at the boy in horror. Elderpark raised his pipe, ready to strike if the creature moved toward the child. But Apex 7 remained perfectly still, its golden eyes locked on Ginho's face. The boy had lived his entire life in these tunnels. Born during the early days of the invasion, he'd never seen a sunrise, never felt grass beneath his feet, never known a world without the constant threat of discovery. His mother had told him stories about the surface world, about trees and flowers and animals that lived free under the open sky. You're like the animals in Mama's stories, Jinho said, taking another step closer, but you're sad. I can see it in your eyes. The creature's massive head tilted slightly, as if trying to understand this strange behavior. In its recovered memories, Apex 7 remembered its own kind, the Void Stalkers who had once roamed free across the galaxy. They had been pack hunters, caring for their young, protecting their families. But those memories were colored by loss and rage. Jinho, please come back, Nari whispered, her voice breaking. Please, my son? But the boy was already kneeling. Beside the creature's massive claw, his small hands hovering just inches from the scarred skin. Up close, he could see the metal implants still embedded in the creature's spine, sparking and broken. He could see the deep scars where the Zephyrians had cut and carved to make their weapon. They hurt you, he said softly. They made you into something you didn't want to be. The words hit Apex 7 like a physical blow. This small human, this child who had never known freedom, somehow understood what had been done. The creature's breathing slowed, its rage-filled eyes beginning to dim. Jinho reached out slowly, his fingertips barely touching the creature's massive claw. The skin was warm, pulsing with a heartbeat that seemed to match his own. I know what it's like to be trapped, he whispered, to want something you can't have. I dream about the sun sometimes, about running in fields of grass. The creature's golden eyes widened. In all its existence, through all the programming and the pain and the forced servitude, no one had ever tried to understand it. The Zephyrians had seen it as a tool. Humans above had seen it as a monster. But this child saw something else entirely. You're not a monster, Jinho continued, his voice barely audible in the tunnel's darkness. You're just scared and angry. And alone, like me sometimes? The boy's hand pressed gently against the creature's claw. And for the first time in 3 years, Apex 7 felt something other than rage or pain. It was a sensation the creature had almost forgotten existed. Connection, understanding, the possibility that not all beings sought to dominate and control. Ginho looked up at the creature's massive face, his eyes bright with an innocence that had somehow survived years of war and hiding. He spoke a single word, but it carried the weight of everything he had learned about kindness from his mother's stories, about hope from his dreams of the surface world. Friend. The word hit Apex 7. Like a physical blow, in all its existence, no one had ever called it friend. The concept was alien. Impossibly yet, here was this small human offering exactly that. The rage that had consumed the creature for days began to crack like ice in spring. Behind the walls of fury, something long buried began to stir. Trust. Connection. The possibility of something beyond endless violence and pain. Jinho smiled, his small hand still resting on the creature's claw. It's okay, he whispered. I'm here. You're not alone anymore. Jinho crept through the darkened tunnel, a small bowl of water balanced carefully in his hands. It had been 2 weeks since the creature first crashed into their hidden home, and the boy had made this journey every day since. The other families whispered about him when they thought he couldn't hear, calling him crazy or cursed. But Jinho didn't care. His friend was hurt, and friends helped each other. Apex 7 lay in the abandoned subway car where it had retreated to. Heal. The creature's massive frame barely fit inside the rusted metal shell, but it provided shelter from the search parties that still prowled the tunnels above. The plasma wound on its shoulder had closed, but the healing process had left the beast weak and exhausted. I brought you water, Jinho said softly, setting the bowl down near the creature's massive head, and some bread. I know you don't eat bread, but Mama says it's good for healing. The creature's golden eyes opened, focusing on the small boy. Over the past weeks, those eyes had changed. The wild fury that had burned there during the rampage was gone, replaced by something softer, something that looked almost like gratitude. I had another dream about the surface, Jinho continued, settling cross-legged beside the creature's claw. There were birds this time. Real birds, not the metal ones the aliens use. They were singing and the sound was beautiful. Do you remember? Birds. Apex 7 made a low, rumbling sound deep in its chest. It did remember. In the recovered memories of its true nature, it recalled soaring through star-filled skies, hunting alongside creatures that filled the void with their songs. The boy's dreams weren't so different from its own memories of freedom. Someday we'll see them together, Jinho said, his voice filled with a hope that seemed impossible given their circumstances. When the war is over, we'll go to the surface and watch the birds fly. The creature's massive head moved slightly, nudging the boy's shoulder with surprising gentleness. It was a gesture of affection, of trust. For the first time in its existence, Apex 7 had chosen to care about another being. Above them, the war continued. Zephyrian patrols scoured the ruins, while human resistance fighters struck at supply lines and communication arrays. But down in the forgotten tunnels, boy and beast existed in their own small world of friendship and healing. 3 weeks after their first meeting, the peace was shattered. Jinho was sharing his daily meal with the creature when the sound of marching feet echoed through the tunnels, military boots on concrete, moving with purpose and precision. They found us, the boy whispered. His face pale with fear, Apex 7 rose to its full height, every muscle in its massive frame tensing for battle. But this time was different. The creature wasn't fighting out of programmed obedience or mindless rage. It was protecting something precious. It was protecting its friend. Commander Vexstar led the Zephyrian strike force through the tunnel system, his 4 arms holding advanced tracking devices that had finally located their missing weapon. Behind him marched 30 elite soldiers, each armed with neural control rods designed to force the creature back into submission. Apex 7 is directly ahead, reported his lieutenant, studying the readings. The creature appears to be stationary. Perhaps it's too weak to resist. But when they reached the abandoned subway car, what they found defied every assumption about control and dominance. The creature stood protectively over a small human boy, its massive form shielding the child from the approaching soldiers. Impossible, Vexstar snarled, his scaled face twisting with rage. No weapon chooses its own master. He raised the master control unit, a device that should have forced immediate obedience from the creature. Energy crackled from the device, sending painful signals directly to Apex 7's neural implants. The creature roared in agony, but it didn't move away from Jinho. You're hurting him? The boy shouted, stepping out from behind his friend's massive leg. Stop it! Vexstar stared at the child in disbelief. The weapon has formed an attachment to this human larva. How fascinating and how utterly useless. The commander gestured. To his soldiers, eliminate the boy. Without this distraction, the creature will return to proper function. But as the soldiers raised their weapons, Apex 7 moved with lightning speed. The creature's massive claws swept through the alien formation. Not killing, but disabling, sending weapons flying and soldiers scrambling for cover. The beast had learned restraint, fighting to protect rather than destroy. Fall back, commanded, his voice breaking with panic. Signal the command ship. We need orbital bombardment. The battle spread through the tunnel system as more Zephyrian forces arrived. But something unexpected happened. Other creatures began to emerge from the shadows' bioweapons that had escaped during transport. Experimental subjects that had broken free from research facilities. They had heard Apex 7's roar, felt the call of their liberated brother. Jinho stood at the center of the chaos, his small hand resting on his friend's massive claw. Around them, the tide of war was turning. The creatures that had once been weapons were choosing their own side, fighting not for the Empire but for the simple right to exist free, The final battle erupted across the ruins of Manhattan as the Zephyrian command ship descended from orbit. Apex 7 led the charge, its massive form cutting through enemy lines while protecting the human fighters who had joined the fight. The creature's knowledge of alien tactics, combined with its newfound purpose, made it unstoppable. In the climactic moment, as the command ship burned and fell from the sky, Jinho stood beside his massive friend. The boy who had never seen sunlight now stood beneath the open sky. Watching the flames of victory light up the clouds above, years passed. The war ended not with conquest, but with understanding. Jinho grew up to become an ambassador, working to rebuild the relationship between humans and the reformed Zephyrian Republic. At his side always stood Apex 7. It's now known simply as Guardian, living proof that friendship could triumph over any programming. The galaxy had learned what one human child knew all along, that even the most fearsome beast could be tamed not by chains or control, but by a single word spoken with genuine kindness. The end.